There are many sides to the tale of creation and how things came to be as they are. Here it is said that in the beginning, God had 3 sons. These 3 sons of God, instead of living in harmony, continuously fought for who would rule over the world. God's 3 sons, Taemuriong, the spirit of sun and fire, Gayu, the spirit of earth, and Nunghwa Miel, the spirit of gold, were always battling, and God, like any father, got tired of this. Since God got fed up, God created a 4th spirit, Siyo, the spirit of water and warmth, to put an end to their conflict. Since Siyo was created to stop the conflict between the brothers, Siyo went all out with its duty, giving its blood to Taemuriong, its eyes to Gayu, and her hands to Nunghwa Miel. Nevertheless, this was a futile attempt by Siyo to calm them, as they tore Siyo to shreds, to take more than Siyo was to give them. This evil act was the brothers' last straw. God had taken enough of their insolence and inflicted dire punishment on all 3 of them. These dire punishments plagued the 3 sons of God until they repented and sought God's forgiveness. To their plea for forgiveness, God said to them that the one soul Siyo that offers up its life for their agony would become the master of their pain. He cursed them, declaring that their pain shall begin with a mark and last till the end of days. Everlasting punishment. Now that's harsh. Nonetheless, this all took place way back during creation. Now we go to Ganak village, the settlement of the Siyo people. Like the spirit Siyo, its surroundings look peaceful, frosty, and serene. In these environs is a young girl, roaming about while singing a song gleefully. Turns out this princess-like looking lady is singing out of joy that she had caught a hare, so her family would have meat that night. It's a shock that she hunts, though. The young lady is en route to her house when she suddenly stops because she sees some white-haired guy standing by her house. Silence is observed for a bit, and then the white-haired guy greets Our Lady. "Hi, Bayan," he says, looking elated, as opposed to the one he is greeting, who looks very offended by his presence. Bayan, our lovely singing lady, who had hunted a hare for her family, barks at her visitor, demanding to know what brought him to her house. During her interrogation, Bayan calls the white-haired guy Jahan, and he looks like he is about to cry after being yelled at. Jahan, seeing that Bayan is not in the mood for any games, hands over the parcel in his hand to her, stating that it is the reason why he came to see her. It's a chunk of meat, and Bayan wishes to know why Jahan is giving it to her. Jahan replies that he was aware Bayan did not get the rations, so he brought her some. Now we are certain our girl Bayan is not a princess, and her family may not be financially stable. Bayan seems offended by Jahan's act of kindness and seeks to know if his father knows what he is up to. Jahan is confused and asks Bayan to elaborate. Bayan, enraged, questions Jahan on how his father, the High Elder, would feel if he knew his son was stealing precious food to give to a worthless mutant freak like her. Jahan corrects Bayan, however, stating that she is not worthless, as she is the one with the strongest healing powers in the village. Young Bayan is unmoved by Jahan's attempt to cheer her up and barks out that there is no use for the power since she doesn't know how to use it. Nevertheless, she orders Jahan to get his nose out of her business, but the kid would not throw in the towel so easily. He tries to explain to our lead girl that he had heard her mother didn't look very okay, another reason why he brought the piece of meat for her and Bayan. Bayan is now utterly disgusted by this young lad's attempts to get on her good side, thinking about how she already knows of her mother not being too okay. She gives the lad one last warning and yells at the top of her voice that he should stay out of her business, as she had told him earlier, and leave her premises. She yelled so loud it sent cries flying and loud enough to send Jahan away. The night goes on, and in the next scene, a seemingly white-haired, blind woman is enjoying a cup of tea. Looks like this woman is Bayan's mother, and she asks Bayan why she is always so angry. The woman points out that the Bayan yells so loud it sends the animals in the forest running, like the birds from earlier. Bayan looks a bit remorseful, but still, she tries to explain to her mother that the boy she was yelling at is really annoying. Bayan is pleading her case while chopping ingredients for their night's meal. While she is multitasking, her mother can tell she is not focused on her chopping and urges her to finish it up. Bayan, slightly offended, brings up the fact that she can't even see whether she has finished chopping or not. Bayan's mother states that though she cannot see, she can still hear very well, and then the room goes quiet. Bayan might be quiet right now, but her mind is rather conflicted about the piece of meat she ended up taking from Jahan. It's shocking that she took Jahan's little charity offer. Even so, right now she feels like throwing it away, but she worries about her mother. It was the deep realization that her mother could go hungry that made her take the meat in the end. Bayan acknowledges that, although she was lucky to get a hair today, she might not be so lucky another day. To worsen things for them, it's winter, and Bayan it's only going to get colder. This increased cold would reduce the chances of her having a successful hunt, so she can't help but wonder what will happen to them at such a time. The option of joining communal work of the village to get rations comes to Bayan's mind, but then she remembers that she is a dark Siyo and is not allowed such privileges. She considers her mother and how she lost her healing powers along with her sight when she was in her youth. This incident left Bayan and her mother to survive on her mother's rations, which are not even enough for them. As if the poor feeding condition is not enough, her mother gets weaker by the day, and this troubles her. The thought of this alone is enough to make Bayan almost cry, yet she holds back her tears and acts okay before she calls her mom to come for dinner. It's clear she is trying to be strong for them both, but how much more can this little girl take? Bayan's mother, unconscious of Bayan's current mood, buys her happy vibe. She compliments Bayan's cooking, stating that it smells nice, and Bayan explains that this is to be expected as it's freshly cooked meat. After one bite, her mother praises the meal, declaring that it is as good as it smells. She urges her mother to have some more food. Nevertheless, while they eat, her mind is busy. She stares at her mom, knowing fully well that though she hates the village, she cannot leave her mom behind. She is well aware of the fact that the village sees her mother as a burden, like how they see her, yet her mother refuses to leave. She can only hope that one day her mother will give in to her persuasion and come with her. Nevertheless, she believes she could just kidnap her mom. That's an option. But her deep thinking is interrupted by her mother when she asks Bayan what she is staring at. Wow, isn't she supposed to be blind? Bayan, understanding that she's been busted, asks her mother how she can tell Bayan is staring when she can't even see. Her mother bluntly replies that she has her ways, and Bayan agrees with her. Later that night, while Bayan and her mother lay on the mat, her mother is fast asleep, yet she is wide awake, beaming with smiles. She believes she has found the solution to her problems. Her solution is to simply wait and hope that her mother agrees to come with her one day, and on that day they'd leave the village behind. Bayan's mind goes from escaping the village to the history of her people. Clearly, they were linked to the spirit of Siyo that the sons of God devoured because they were born with healing powers. Their business was simple: to join hands and store their combined powers in an urn, to sell the stored-up healing power as medicine. The medicine stored up in urns is called Riona, and is the Siyo people's main source of income. These Siyo people are mostly born with silver hair, but there are times when a dark Siyo is born into the fold. These dark Siyo are mutants and, like Bayan, have black hair unlike the others and strong healing powers. Sadly, they can only heal themselves and not others. Due to this difference, the dark Siyo they were tagged as worthless and harshly mistreated. Bayan finally gets some shut-eye. There's a lot the story of this young dark Siyo had in store for us, that's for sure. The following day, Bayan goes to the local stream to do her laundry. There she meets a bunch of silver-haired Siyos chatting. She seems disgusted by their presence, pointing out that everyone is outside because of the warm weather. Anyway, she is done with her laundry and hopes to get back home quickly before anyone spots her. Nice plan, Bayan, however. The only problem is that she is the only one around with dark hair, so she was noticed before she even fully planned her escape. She feels like no one spotted her as she tiptoes away, only to be intercepted by a mean Siyo that makes her trip. Bayan falls to the floor, along with her laundry and the mean girl who made her trip. She is surrounded by 3 girls, and the one who made her fall greets her like she didn't even do anything wrong. Bayan, a lot more disgusted and unsurprised when she spots this girl, refers to her as a little fox. though she doesn't declare it out loud. Bayan, being the strong person she is, simply gets up and dusts herself, giving no response to the girls trying to bully her. The mean silver-haired girl is a little offended by Bayan's purposely ignoring her. She asks Bayan if she heard her or not, and if she won't say hi to her, calling herself Bayan's friend, but Bayan shoots out that they are not friends. The bully's name is Saran, and Bayan, having known her for a while now, considers her to be one of those sweet-faced girls who are mean as hell, as you can see. Saran acts like she is hurt by Bayan's response, while her followers, the other silver-haired Siyos, Glami and Yule, comfort and encourage her. They are basically her puppets, so that much is expected from them. While Yule was praising Saran, she said something about the Emperor's court being more challenging than Bayan, and Bayan picked that little comment. She asks the girls if they are headed to the Emperor's court, and Glami proudly affirms that they are indeed on their way there. She also says something about some news that it's clear Bayan has not heard, and Yule proudly tells Bayan what she knows. Yule proudly informs Bayan that one known as the Great Sun Emperor is looking for a new concubine after his recent conquest. This is how he wishes to reward himself for a job well done. Glami, seemingly more excited than the rest of the girls, informs Bayan that they had sent for one candidate from the Siyo people. Saran was selected to fill in that position because, according to them, she is the greatest beauty of the Siyo people. Yule, on their other hand, is more interested in Saran getting selected because she suspects the village will benefit from her being one of the emperor's concubines. Benefits like a tax cut and some other wonders are what Yule feels will come to the village if only Saran can win the emperor's heart. Talk about counting your chickens before they hatch. On hearing this news, Bayan is not in any way jealous, as they probably would have expected she would be. She doesn't even see this as a privilege, because last she checked, the Great Sun Emperor they are bragging about was a bloodthirsty warlord. That's not all, however. She had heard the man was not even in his right mind, and she is not even impressed by this news. The ladies don't even notice Bayan lost interest in their ruckus a while back and keep telling her stuff that she doesn't even care about her. Information like how Yule and Glami intend on being the handmaids/helping hands of Saran, who they see as the future empress. Saran tries to act all modest by pretending to caution her friends from praising her. Bayan is surprised that Glami and Yule plan to tag along, and Yule feels she is asking out of jealousy. But Bayan opens their eyes to something Saran must have missed. She sees Saran as rather dumb for taking her friends with her when the emperor might actually fancy one of them. Glami calls Bayan silly, while Yule claims the two of them are not half as beautiful as Saran. Bayan believes they cannot be so sure because they do not know what type of women the emperor likes. She points out that Yule is also one of their village's beauties. Yule raises her hand in self-defense, but then Bayan announces that she is uninterested in this type of talk and pulls her clothes off the floor because Yule is stepping on it. It's impolite to step on someone's clothes, isn't it? Now that that's settled, Bayan bundles up her clothes to leave, wishing Saran a good time with the emperor. Meanwhile, deep down, she just wants to leave their company. As Bayan has left the friends, Glami tries to assure Saran that she should not worry about the things Bayan just blurted a few minutes ago. She claims Bayan only spoke like that because she is jealous and would never come across such an honorary opportunity like this. Nevertheless, it seems Bayan's words are settling in Satan's head, and she suddenly feels Bayan does not look so bad for the dark Siyo freak she is. Saran's sudden interest in Bayan is because Bayan warned her about the possibility of the emperor leaving her to go for her friends. Saran believes Bayan takes after her mother in beauty. Turns out her mother was loose despite her role as a sibyl, as in prophetess of the Siyo village. Although Glami is unsure of this, she simply agrees so as to kill the topic of them snatching the emperor from Saran. Siyo, on the other hand, feeling like she's off the hook after leaving the midst of the three friends, can't even get home peacefully because two children chase after her, raining insults on her. It's unclear why Saran is suddenly quiet and cold while watching Bayan get insulted by the children. Even when friends Glami and Yule step in, calling Bayan an embarrassment and a Siyo mutt who does not even know her father, Saran says nothing. Seeing as she cannot fend off the children, all Bayan can do is run away from the children because they are throwing stones at her. What a bad day for poor Bayan. Bayan's words weighed on Saran, so she ended up going to the emperor's court on her own, with no handmaids. The emperor she goes to see, however, looks like an epistle of trouble. In the next scene, we see an angry Glami and Yule chasing after a very unfortunate Bayan. Bayan makes her way through the trees of the forest, trying to escape. She would have escaped from this unharmed if not for one of the girls that gets a hold of her long black hair. The girls give Bayan a nasty beating, and when they let go of her, all she can do is yell out in annoyance with her heart racing. She doesn't understand why she even got beat up because she feels it's not her fault that Saran left them behind. She can't understand why they would beat her up for a choice Saran made. This wasn't the first time they beat her up. It had happened often when they were all younger, but she felt they had all grown above beating her up. Well, she was wrong about them, and today is just one of those bad days for her. Her day is going so badly that even her self-healing is working slower than usual today. Bayan limps until she gets home, and things look like they are about to get even worse for her. Why? A mysterious old man is standing outside her house. She politely asks the man what brought him to her house, but he rudely replies that it's none of her business and goes as far as calling her a good-for-nothing girl to express his rage. The man is Danim, the high elder of Ganak village, and definitely one of the Siyo persons who despise her. Bayan's blunt apology to Danim simply tells us that she is used to this kind of thing and doesn't care. But how much more can Bayan take? Sadly, Danim isn't finished with bad-mouthing Bayan. He adds a complaint about her being covered in filth and states that it is a shame to their ancestors that they have to keep a freak like her in their village. Danim still isn't done yet. He tells Bayan that looking at her makes him bitter, and he orders her to get out of his sight. Even though Bayan is at her own house, she takes the insult, politely apologizes, bows, and takes her leave. Seems like Bayan's reaction to the High Elder's insults annoys him the more. I suspect he'd rather she break down in tears because of the harsh things he had said. Since Danim is not satisfied, he calls Bayan one last time, making her wonder what it is he wants this time. He tells her that she should not dare try to run off to another village. He also rudely admonishes her to be thankful for all the things their village has done for her, even though she is a dark Siyo. Before letting her go, Danim assures Bayan that she will only starve to death if she goes anywhere else. Again, Bayan doesn't break down or show emotions. She just tells Danim she will keep his words in mind and then she leaves. Bayan's mind, after what she just faced now, doesn't even dwell on Danim's harshness. Instead, she is thinking about Riona, the medicine they make that has high healing potency. The Riona medicine is the village's pride, and the man who just gave her a tongue lashing, High Elder Danim, was one of the main contributors to the drug's fame. She knows the man has kept on growing stronger since his youthful days and is now the strongest healer in every Siyo village combined. Because of this healing prowess Danim attained, he was treated like a king, and because of that, he lived like one. Now her mind goes to the reason why such a powerful man has graced their humble home with his presence. Bayan wonders if Danim came because he is trying to keep her, the embarrassment of their village, a secret. She then recalls that he said something about her starving to death if she left the village. Bayan sees the comment as a joke because she feels barely alive in the village. She heaves a sigh of frustration to clear her head, but then her mother comes out of nowhere and asks her what she is doing. The question startled Bayan and she screams in fear as her mother almost gave her a heart attack. Bayan is still trying to catch her breath after the scare when her mother asks her what the matter is. She doesn't answer the question, but asks her mother not to startle her like that next time. Bayan's mother tells her that she needs more guts and instructs her to come into the house and get ready. Bayan, now back to her normal self, asks her mother what it is she is to get ready for, and her mother tells her that she is to prepare for the bloodletting. Bayan seeks to know why her mom wants to do the bloodletting now. a few days before the end of the month and earlier than they usually do it. Bayan, making mention of it being a few days to the end of the month, makes her mother worry, believing that she does not have enough time. What is she talking about? I'm not sure, because even Bayan doesn't understand. The thought that this might have something to do with Danim's visit comes into Bayan's mind, and she gets even more confused about the situation. Bayan asks her mother what she means by, "She does not have time when she just sits at home all day." She thinks even deeper, seeking to know if her mother is going anywhere since she is blind. Bayan isn't even patient enough to wait for a response, and adds that there might be no one to guide her with the way the weather is. Bayan's mother, after hearing all the questions Bayan throws at her, just blows them off, shushing Bayan and demanding that Bayan does not pry into her business. Since Bayan's mother refuses to give her an answer, she reminds her that the bloodletting has to be done at the right time for it to work. Added to that, it could backfire if the timing was wrong. Now this sounds dangerous, and what is pushing her mother to set all this aside is what Bayan wants to know. When Bayan asks her mother what is more important than the bloodletting, she yet again gets another cold response from her mother. This time, her mother is clearly annoyed by the questioning and orders Bayan to be quiet and get herself ready as she has asked her to. Bayan's mother, even though she is blind, can tell she is filthy at the moment and orders her to start by getting the wash basin. She has no choice but to obey her mother, but that doesn't stop her from being angry and stomping away angrily. Bayan wonders what her mother is trying to hide as she boils in rage, but while she is marching off to get the wash basin, she spots something that catches her attention. Well, actually, it's someone and not something, and that someone is Jahan, the guy who got her a chunk of meat earlier. It looks like he is hiding behind a tree when Bayan spots him and asks him what he is doing by her house. Seems his mind must be busy since Bayan calling out to him startles him. Still, it looks like he wants to talk. Unlike last time, when Bayan kicked Jahan out of her house, this time she actually went out to hear what he has to say. Maybe her day is just so bad that she decides to give this guy an ear. Jahan starts his little talk by asking Bayan if she saw his father at their house today, and asks her something. Bayan looks surprised at first. Then she asks Jahan what thing her father was to ask her while observing him. From the look of things, since Jahan is wearing such thin clothes under such cold weather, she wonders if Jahan snuck out of the house or hurried out, or maybe something else. Bayan's response gives Jahan a little relief, and he seems glad that his father didn't tell Bayan anything. The question and the fact that Jahan feels okay, Bayan wasn't asked anything, makes Bayan ask Jahan what the matter is. Surprisingly, she hasn't sent Jahan away yet. Maybe it's because he has the information she desires. It takes her only one time to ask to make Jahan spill. He looks uncomfortable as he tells Bayan that there is going to be a meeting the following day at their village. This meeting will have all the elders from the Siyo villages of Ganak and Kunak. He tells Bayan that he had come all the way from his house because his mother was looking for people who would help her cook for the event, and he wanted to know if she was interested. That's odd, right? Because if that is truly what his father, High Elder Danim, wanted to ask her as he claims, then why was he so mean to her? Bayan can see through all their lies, knowing fully well that no one would want to invite her for something like that. Nevertheless, she wonders what the real issue is that everyone around her is acting so suspiciously. First, it was the High Elder who came to her house. Then her mother acted all suspicious by wanting to conduct an early bloodletting. Now Jahan is here lying to her face, Jahan of all people. Bayan decides not to look deeply into Jahan's lie and tells him that she wishes he wouldn't just show up to her house randomly all the time. According to her, this makes people say stuff about her and get the wrong idea. Jahan is touched by Bayan's words, and as she is about to leave, he takes her hand and asks her what the wrong message is. She then asks him what he really wants to have with her, and if he has a thing for freaks. She then accuses Jahan of being bored with all the other girls in the village since he is so popular. He is the High Elder's son, after all. Bayan's questions and assumptions shake Jahan. From his reaction, it's obvious he is hurt by his words. His reaction, however, does not stop Bayan from lashing out and taking out all her pent-up frustration and anger on him. She further adds that she is not interested in having anything to do with Jahan and rudely asks him to leave, freeing herself from his grip. Bayan's words really hurt Jahan. He tries to clear his name, but is on the verge of shedding tears, so he runs away, leaving Bayan all by herself again. She remembers how the children bullied her for being different back when she was younger, and tears gather in her eyes. Poor Bayan. Well, later on, Bayan gets ready for the bloodletting, and so does her mother. According to Bayan, bloodletting is drawing out blood, which is the source of all life, in order to calm the body's unruly energy. Bloodletting, though it's an extremely painful process, is necessary for even mutants like Bayan, who could die from the excess wild energy running in the blood. Bayan bites on a cloth to keep herself from screaming out loud during this very painful process. Once her mother is set, she takes Bayan's hand, waiting for Bayan to be ready, and when she is, they begin. From the shadow reflection, we can see why this bloodletting is branded extremely painful. Her mother had to stab her severally for blood to be removed because of how quickly Bayan heals after a cut. It took several attempts, after which Bayan's blood oozing with unruly energy was removed. Bayan's mother ordered her to take the blood in the washpan and pour it into the urn where they usually dispose of it, and she goes to do as she has been asked. While pouring it out, Bayan thinks about her bloodletting and how it takes longer and longer every time for her blood to be drawn out. Bayan then notices something rather odd as she pours out the contents of the washpan. She notices that the urn they fill every month, which is covered in talismans, is almost empty, and wonders if the ground absorbs it. Disgusting, right? It doesn't take her too long, however, to notice another detail she had missed, which is that one of the charm papers was ripped. Bayan's mother suspects that the reason why the charm paper ripped is because the urn's bind is weakening. Her mother believes this is because Bayan's power is about to grow stronger than ever. She even suspects it's growing as they speak. Bayan's mother then advises Bayan to go to the moon-shadowed lake every 2 weeks to cleanse her body. Bayan, since this is her first time of hearing about this lake, asks her mother what it is. Her mother describes it as a lake on which the moon's reflection can be seen. Bayan disbelieves this information because they do not even have a well in their village, talk less of a lake. She asks her mother how she is supposed to find this lake, especially in the dead of winter. The next thing that comes out of Bayan's mother's mouth makes matters even worse, as she asks her to first find herself an azure pond. Bayan is so clueless about this stuff. She asks her mother what this azure pond is, along with everything she is talking about in general. All this time she misses the important point. But then she gets it. Her mother was saying that she could calm her energies by washing herself in this lake. She is gladdened by the news and questions her mother for not telling her this key piece of information much sooner. She is well aware of the fact that this can save her and her mother from the trouble of conducting a bloodletting every month. Bayan's mother goes quiet, and Bayan can tell she has something she does not want to admit. Instead of waiting for something that might never happen, Bayan goes ahead and spills it herself. She believes her mother wants to admit she is getting too old to help her with the bloodletting. Her mother nods in agreement, and Bayan would not just let this topic die. She teases her mother because she is growing old, pointing out that her mother's old age is creeping up on her. Also, she claims she noticed her mother's hands shaking during the bloodletting, and her mother just blows off the topic. Turns out she had nodded to play Bayan, and withholds the true reason why she wishes to stop bloodletting and advise Bayan to wash in the lake. Bayan's mother refuses to say anything else, ending the conversation and suggesting that they stop the chit-chat and Bayan gets some rest. Bayan asks her mother where she is headed since she is leaving the room, and her mother tells her that she is just going to stroke the fire. Again, she asks Bayan to lie down and get some rest, and then she leaves. Bayan wishes to pester her mother even more, but a fever comes and she decides to drop the matter for now and get some rest. This fever is commonplace for Bayan after a bloodletting because during this time, some of her healing powers don't work. Because of this, she gets confined to a bed for at least 3 days, and she makes her bed having this in mind. Her mother does the fire so Bayan would sleep softer, and while Bayan sleeps, she is unaware of the outside world. Why is it that when we are unavailable, the most dramatic things go down? Not sure, but while Bayan was out, something unexpected takes place at the village. First, there is a loud cry, and then villagers swarm a Siyo woman who slumps to prevent her from falling badly. Do not let her mother see it. A man orders, and then he orders that they cover the girl up quickly. What girl? What's going on? Well, the villagers who rush to do as the man has ordered might have the answer. Looks like he commands a lot of power, though, with the way he is throwing orders around. The 3 villagers stare in horror when one opens up about being shocked by what happened. He also comments on how the emperor is as crazy as the rumors have it. There's even more murmuring in the background, but another villager tells the man speaking against the emperor to quiet down. From the next scene, we see that someone, probably the Siyo girl, has been murdered, and it looks like the emperor is the one behind this. It seems like the emperor being discussed here is the great sun emperor whom Saran was so glad to go try out to be his concubine. The same emperor was the reason why Yule and Glami beat Bayan up. Why would he do something like this? The villagers keep murmuring. Some wonder who would have the guts to go to the emperor's court after seeing what happened to the last girl who went. Others wonder why the emperor would ask for the village to send another girl, while some believe that since it's the emperor's orders, they will just have to do as he has ordered for the sake of their lives. I don't think anyone liked Saran, but the way she ended up being murdered by the emperor is pitiful. It's certain that if the news gets to Yule and Glami, they would be glad they didn't go with Saran. Looks like Bayan just saved their lives unconsciously. Since the villagers believe that they must do as the emperor desires and send another girl, the man who was giving orders earlier asks to know who they send. A villager suggests they send the girl they initially planned on sending before they sent Saran. We find out that the girl they are talking about is Yule, and the man is shaken by what he thinks they are implying. I don't think he is comfortable with sending Yule after seeing how Saran ended up. Nevertheless, it looks like Yule might be more than just another girl in the village to this man because the other villagers selected her so casually, and he seems uncomfortable with the suggestion. Elsewhere, maybe days after the people of Siyo lost Saran, in a chilly forest, a hare tries its best to evade Bayan. We know she is good at hunting them, but this one, however, is slicker than usual and even taunts her. Bayan, feeling insulted by the hare's taunting, intensifies her chase, promising the hare that she will have it for dinner. While chasing the hare, Bayan remembers that she had come out to get some herbs. Nevertheless, she knows a hare would be even better. She regrets not coming out with a means to use and catch this hare because if she had a sling, she wouldn't have had to do this with her bare hands. When the bunny runs into a cave, Bayan beams with joy at what looks like a mistake on the part of the hare. She knows the mountains well and knows that every cave in it leads to a dead end. She joyfully dashes to the cave the hare runs into, certain she has it cornered now. When Bayan runs into the cave, it's much bigger than normal and leads to a light that drags her attention. Bayan leaves off chasing the hare and follows the light to a place where it looks like summer. Crazy, right? Wasn't it winter like 10 seconds ago? Bayan observes her surroundings. She marvels at how green the grass is and looks around until her eyes lock on to a lake. When she spots the lake, her mother's little talk about the moon-shadowed lake comes into her mind, and the instruction. She remembers that and her mom's instruction that she is to wash herself in the lake every 2 weeks. Since Bayan has discovered this lake, she believes that since her mother told her to wash herself in a lake that has the moon shining on it, she can improvise. Her plan? To go to this lake she has discovered on a moonlit night so the moon would be reflecting on it. Bayan smiles at her lucky find, but then she recalls that they are supposed to be in the dead of winter. That aside, she notices that the hare she was chasing is gone and wonders if she is under some kind of spell. She is staring at the lake when she notices she is not alone because she hears sounds coming from behind her. Bayan asks who is startled and asks who is there. The sounds of grunting continue, and then a person comes out from the midst of the trees. A man with clothes all messy, declaring that he is so thirsty. The stranger looks a bit off, spreading this dark vibe around, but Bayan decides the best thing to do is to observe him before taking any other action. She stares at the man, wondering who he is and why he is drenched in blood. First, she feels he might be hurt. Then she notices the blood-stained sword being dragged on the floor and is automatically alarmed. Nevertheless, this is not enough to make Bayan head for the hills. Then she notices the cold, dead look on the man's face, and it sends chills down her spine. Enough chills to understand he is dangerous and cause her to dash away from him in fear. Not too long after Bayan makes a run for it, she is caught by her pursuer and she decides to attempt to fight her way out of this one. She yells at the man, ordering him to let go of her. She wonders if he cannot hear her request, but then the stranger does something unprecedented, which is to taste Bayan's neck various times. Bayan moves from scared to disgusted, wondering what this stranger is trying to do. She asks him what he is doing, and then pushes him away, freeing herself from his arms, only to fall into the lake. Sadly, Bayan can't swim and begins to drown, so in order to survive, she splashes around, trying to stay above the water as she yells out to the stranger for help. The man just stands there staring at her, and Bayan wishes that he wouldn't just stand there and stare and he'd actually give her a helping hand. The man watches as Bayan drowns, and then she garners all her strength and screams, "Help me out, you jerk!" It is then she notices that she was not under a spell or something else, but she was actually dreaming the whole time. Bayan's mother, because of how loud her daughter was, smacks her tongue in disappointment and cautions Bayan for even yelling in her sleep. Bayan is still trying to recover from the shock of the dream, but it's obvious she is relieved it was a dream. Her mother tells her to have a drink of water and calm down, after which Bayan spots the bowl of water by her and does as her mother requests. Once Bayan is done with the bowl of water, she yells out in joy, confessing how glad she is that it was a dream, because she had felt she was going to die. Bayan's mother tells her that she is rather energetic for someone who has not eaten in 3 days. Bayan is surprised to hear this and yells out a request to know if she was truly asleep for 3 whole days, and her mother agrees it was indeed so. Bayan panics because of this news and asks her mom how she sorted out her meals for the past few days. Her mother then opens up to her about Jahan's deeds. According to her, he came to prepare meals for her every day. As if that was not enough, he tended to the fire and stove as well, and Bayan's mother sees him as a nice kid. Indeed he is, don't you think? How things with Bayan and Jahan went last time play back in Bayan's head when she hears this. She starts wondering why Jahan would help her mom after the way she had dismissed him, and her mother notices the shift in mood. She interrogates Bayan to know what the matter is, but Bayan tells her that there is nothing to worry about. Suddenly she notices the ripped charm paper under her pillow and asks her mom what it was doing there. Bayan's mother happily replies that she placed the charm papers there to bring her sweet dreams, instantly reminding Bayan of the murderous man in her dream. She tells her mother that the charm paper did the opposite and gave her nightmares. Her mother, even so, disagrees with Bayan. She tells Bayan that it is only time that will tell whether the dream will bring good or ill fortune. Wise words. The only problem is that Bayan does not understand them. Once again, Bayan's mother, tired of their conversation, declares its end and instructs Bayan to go and wash herself. Yeah, a bath in such cold weather is something Bayan feels uncomfortable with. She complains about the cold and shrivers her way into the bathroom, only to find warm water on the stove. This act has Jahan written all over it, and this annoys her. Talking to no one in particular, Bayan yells out in rage that Jahan is not going to get any thanks from her, and she can wash just fine with cold water. Bayan just doesn't want Jahan to patronize her, but her reason behind hating this good guy is rather shallow, don't you think? It takes just one splash of cold water to get Bayan to understand the essence of the warm one. When she cries out due to the cold, her mother just smiles, smacking her tongue in fulfillment. Snow in Ganak, Bayan's village, has always been a bit extra. It lasts long, and then it usually piles up to the height of an average man. With the snow increasing by the second, and Bayan's home being in a location that isolates it from the village, due to the snow, preparations for what is yet to come should be done early and fast. Down at the village, rations for the next couple of days arrive at the village. The villagers are charged to line up so the rations can be shared. The villagers do as they have been asked, by lining up, and then the man from that night Saran was confirmed dead is to share the rations. Bayan is troubled that it's the man from that night's turn to share rations because of how he despised her, and she concludes she is done for. She identifies the man as Yule's dad, and her mind is so focused on the Yule's dad situation that she doesn't notice all the Siyo people staring at her in disdain. Now his reaction when they suggested sending Yule after what happened to Saran is quite understandable. Bayan hopes to get at least 2 weeks worth of rations because of the building up snow. Even so, because of her history with Yule's dad, she expects the worst. She has it in mind that he might shoo her off or give her trash. Since they go way back, Bayan remembers a time when Yule's dad was one of the nice persons to her, but he changed all of a sudden, and now is one of the worst ones to her. Bayan is next in line, standing there contemplating what to do when Yule's father spots her. He yells out a request to know why she is still standing there, and before she is done asking for rations, he tosses her a parcel. Bayan picks up the parcel of rations and stares at it in amazement. She is surprised that Yule's father would give her a pack of rations that big. It's obvious she was not expecting this. Does the sudden kindness have anything to do with Saran's death and Yule being the next candidate? That's unclear now. What's clear now is that Yule's dad claims to be doing this because he heard Yule's mother was not well. He informs her that the parcel contains 2 weeks' worth of grains and a chunk of meat, enough to do for a pot of broth for her mother. Bayan stares at Yule's dad in shock. She's definitely surprised that this mean man would be this kind, but then he reverts to his old ways, shooing her off with the wave of a hand. Bayan is lost when he does this, so she doesn't even notice it. She is still dazzled by the pack of 2 weeks' worth of rations. Because Bayan does not respond, Yule's dad has to repeat himself, even more fiercer than the first time. He yells at Bayan that he has sent her away and wants her out of his sight. His tone snaps Bayan out of her little lost state, and then Bayan leaves. Before leaving, she thanks Yule's dad one last time. 2 weeks' worth of rations is a lot after all, and after this, she leaves happily. As Bayan walks away with the food in her sack, she thinks about how once upon a time, there were actually some people in the village who treated her with compassion. Yule's dad was one of those people. Back when Bayan was a little girl, she remembered one time when Yule's dad stood up for her. Bad gave her corn when she was hungry. She blushes at a time back then when she was foolish enough to wish Yule's father was really her dad. She is all smiles today because of the big pack of rations she is taking home to her mom today, so happy that she sings on her way back home. Suddenly there's a stomp behind her, and from the looks of things it's a girl, and she might be angry at Bayan. What follows confirms our belief as Glami comes into the scene yelling out to Bayan and accusing her of purposely ignoring her. Bayan flinches at the sound of Glami's voice. Looks like she was carried away with the singing and really didn't notice Glami until now. Yeah, we guessed right, she didn't notice Glami and tells Glami that she caught her by surprise. Glami, still annoyed, tells Bayan that she sings like a pig being led to the slaughter. That's harsh, but then again, it's Glami, so such remark is to be expected from the arrogant girl. Suddenly, Glami reaches into her dress to get something while Bayan waits to see what it is. She ends up pulling out 2 small parcels and hands them over to Bayan. When Bayan asks Glami what's in the parcels, she says meat, and Bayan feels a bit uncomfortable. She hesitates to take the parcel and asks Glami why she is giving it to her. She asks if the meat is rotten, because, to her, Glami would never give her anything good. But Glami argues that the meat is not rotten. It must have taken a lot for her to play nice, because immediately she suspects Bayan will not take the parcel of meat, so she tosses it to the floor and stomps on it repeatedly. While stomping on the parceled meat, She declares that she must have been out of her mind to give a thank you gift to a little freak. Bayan, while watching this, feels Glami is indeed behaving like she has lost her mind and asks Glami what she is thanking her for. At this point, Glami is unafraid to release her true colors. She switches to a really cold tone and tells Bayan what she is sure she might not have heard. And what's that? Saran is dead. This information spooks Bayan, and out of shock, she asks Glami how and why Saran is dead. Bayan replies like Saran was some stranger to her, stating that the great Sun Emperor she went to be a concubine for killed Saran. She then gladly describes how gory the murder was and adds that the shock of it hit Saran's mother so hard that she fainted on the spot. As if killing Saran was not enough, the emperor laid waste to all the other new concubines and their handmaids. She explains that the only reason why they got Saran's body back was because Saran was an official concubine. The evil girl admits that she is thanking Bayan because of what she said about the emperor falling for either her or Yule, which made Saran ditch them in the village. She also admits that she had seen Bayan as a useless freak but gives her the benefit of the doubt because she technically saved her life. Glami then completely kills the Saran discussion and states that she does not like owing people. She seeks to know what Bayan wants as payment, since she refuses meat. Bayan, on the other hand, is still stunned by the news of Saran's death when Glami lands on how she plans on paying Bayan back. Glami's next words make it look like she is planning to pay Bayan back with some intel, since no one tells her anything. She tells Bayan that a few days ago there was a meeting with all the elders from the 3 villages. Wait, isn't that the meeting Jahan hinted to her about the day she was rude to him and almost made him cry? She tells Bayan that during that meeting, Yule's father threw a fit. Bayan gets curious, talking with Glami. This long is unlike her, but then she asks Glami why Yule's father threw a fit. Glami reveals that the emperor ordered that they send another concubine from the Siyo people, and Yule was to be next in line. Yule's father, in order to save his daughter from such a fate as Saran's, threatened to leave the village if they sent Yule to the emperor's court. His threat forced the elders to reconsider their decision, because of Yule's father's value to them and his healing power that is nearly equal to Elder Danim's. Glami says that the only reason why Yule was spared is because they can't afford to lose her father. It pays to have influential parents, is Glami's message. Meanwhile, Bayan is more focused on the strength of Yule's father's healing power. This healing prowess Glami preaches was not something Yule's father possessed when last she checked. The Yule's father she knew was a joke to the village because he couldn't even heal a small cut. Since Yule is out of the picture, Bayan seeks to know if they ended up deciding to send someone from the other village to the emperor's court, but Glami does not know that much. Nevertheless, she knows that, though it has not been decided yet, she drops a hint about the possibility of them sending someone who has now become worthless to the village. Glami's cold tone is disturbing, and Bayan seeks to know who she has in mind. Glami then acts ignorant, claiming not to know this person, getting on Bayan's nerves little because she can't tell what Glami is driving at. Seeing as Glami is probably done with what she has to say, Bayan turns to leave, announcing her exit. But then Glami makes another cold and unexpected move. She tells Bayan that she heard Bayan is no longer doing the bloodletting, and Bayan freezes, shocked that Glami knows she has stopped bloodletting. Now, Bayan is pissed, so she turns to Glami and asks how she knows this, but Glami withholds that information. Glami tells Bayan that it's quite disgusting that she could not survive without earnfuls of blood being drawn out of her and calls her a real freak for that. Bayan is shocked Glami knows this much, but Glami's tone grows colder, and I'm sure at this point some of you are hoping Bayan gives Glami a beating, but instead she just stands there, listening to what Glami has to say. Glami sickishly reacts to Bayan's shock, taunting Bayan for being surprised and thinking they wouldn't have known about the bloodletting. She adds that anyone in the village who is somebody in the village knows about Bayan's periodic bloodletting. This conversation gets even weirder until Glami seals the weirdness by telling Bayan that they know about the bloodletting because they drink her blood together. This cold tone and revelation shakes Bayan, and she wonders what Glami means by they drank the blood together. Bayan runs home after hearing this. Bayan runs home to discover that there is no urn and no trace of it anywhere, so she wonders who took it since it's no longer at its spot. She tries to convince herself that Glami is lying about people taking her blood and drinking it together. As Bayan cannot find the urn outside, she runs into her house hysterically and asks her mother where the urn is. Bayan's mother asks what urn she is talking about, and when she tells her that she is referring to the blood urn, they usually buried in the back. She claims she does not know. Bayan, still trying to disbelieve Glami's information, seeks to know if her mother truly doesn't know. Her mother then decides to tell her that the urn might be with High Elder Danim, or Yule's father. This confirms what Glami had told her earlier, and Bayan, though shocked, airs out her surprise that her mother knew about this all along. For her final confirmation, she asks her mother if it is true that they drink her blood together, and she tells Bayan that they do. She goes on to explain to Bayan that her blood before she comes of age has the power to make Siyo people's healing powers even stronger. She adds that they could refer to the blood as some kind of precious potion. It now begins to dawn on Bayan that the reason why villagers like Danim and Yule's father got stronger all of a sudden is because of her blood. So all this while they were gaining from her and still treated her badly? Now that's low. Bayan also understands that the reason why the higher-ups were trying their best to make her stay in the village, and her mother affirms it. She says that since Bayan was practically feeding the people of her village with her power, they didn't want to lose her to another village. Bayan now wonders why, even at that, they still treated her like trash. As her mom sits there silently, she remembers that her mom always objected to her leaving the village, so she starts thinking her mother had something to gain. Because of this, Bayan asks her mother a disturbing question, and that's if she sold her to the village people. As Bayan's mother gives her no response, she asks her if she was selling her blood to them, and if that was the reason behind them conducting the bloodletting. The questions cause Bayan to shiver in uncertainty, but then her mother asks her to sit down, looks like she is going to spill. Bayan, eager to hear what her mother has to say, sits by her, and then suddenly, her mother whacks her hard on the forehead. She rubs the spot her mother hit and asks why she struck her. Bayan's mom then asks her what kind of person she sees her as. She lashes out, growing red with rage, as she asks Bayan how a mother would draw out her own daughter's blood to sell. She asks Bayan if Bayan feels she would hurt her just to make profit, and states that she wouldn't do something so horrible, even if it was for a mountain of gold. Bayan is shocked by her mother's reaction and just sits there in awe. She can tell her mother is telling the truth, so she decides to take back the accusation with a warm smile on her face. That's not enough to silence her mother, however, and it looks like there is a lot she has to say to Bayan. She explains to Bayan that she had to find a way to keep her energy in check until she came of age. After a long and hard search, the only remedy she came across that she had the power to carry out was the bloodletting. Understanding the value of Bayan's blood and the lust for power of the villagers, Bayan's mother decided to make a deal with them. Due to the harsh treatment she and Bayan got, she decided that she would give the blood to the villagers and tell them about its effects. In exchange, they promised to leave her and Bayan alone. Bayan is surprised to hear how deep this goes and asks her mother what she means by a promise and if the villagers are threatening them. Her mother replies that she thinks the higher-ups were afraid that people would find out who Bayan's real father was, and that was why they threatened them. Bayan, though she hesitates at first, finally summons up courage and asks her mother if it was High Elder Danim who threatened her. The suggestion alarms Bayan's mother, and Bayan explains why she suspects High Elder Danim. She tells her mother that once when she was younger, she had overheard him talking to her. Bayan tells her mother that, from what she understood back then, she had told High Elder Danim that she was his child, although Danim denied it. Wow. High Elder Danim is actually Bayan's biological father, and he denied her. This explains why he is always so hostile to her. She is a child he had out of wedlock. This is a whole lot to process. Bayan's mother marvels as Bayan tells her this. She clearly was unaware that Bayan knew this all along. The blind woman is so stunned that she opens her eyes. After some tense silence, she yells that High Elder Danim is not Bayan's father. She is still yelling when she grabs Bayan's arms and tells her that she has no father and shakes her, declaring that she only has a mother. Though the High Elder is Bayan's biological father, this is how her mother reacts to all the years they caused her pain, and Bayan understands, so she tries to calm her mother down. Bayan's mother begins to tremble. Poor woman, keeping all this time must have been hard for her. Bayan's mother calls out Danim, Yule's father, Glami's father, and Saran's father, and points out that though those men look like human beings, they are all beasts. Now all of them look so different, men we all felt were honorable and held in high esteem in the beginning. So this is the lineage of the spirit of Siyo that died at the hands of the sons of God. How shameful. Siyo would be very disappointed that these are supposed to be her people. Well, it's no wonder their kids are such brats. And that's not all, however. Bayan's mother tells her that she was violated by those animals. This reminds Bayan of every time she was picked on, yelled at, and treated badly, so she can relate to her mother's pain. Bayan breaks down, bursting into tears as she stammers out an apology to her mother. She specifically apologized for being born, something that touches her mother, and then her mother wraps her in her arms, urging her to stop crying. Bayan's mother pleads with her to stop crying as there is nothing for her to be sorry about. She even tells Bayan that she has never regretted her for an instant and has so much to thank her for. Bayan, however, believes her mother shouldn't thank her because according to Bayan, she has put her mother through a lot. All this emotion going around, and then finally we get the privilege of looking into Bayan's mother's story. Long ago, when Bayan's mother was a Sibyl, back when she was young and very beautiful, and her powers were the strongest for miles around. Nevertheless, according to her, her power was useless, only good for getting money from people. She could basically read destines and use that to make profit, but when it came to Bayan, her little girl, she saw nothing. According to her, it was almost as if she was reading a dead man's star. However, she didn't wish to give up and broke the Sibyl's vow, so she could see into Bayan's future. In order to find the best fate for Bayan, Bayan's mother paid a costly price. She lost her eyesight and her powers of divination, but after losing all this, she had no regret. After losing it all, Bayan's mother was still happy and grateful for her power because it led her to experience the kind of happiness that only a parent could experience, an experience she would not have had if Bayan was never born. It's so cute how happy they looked together back then. Until now, Bayan's mother is thankful to Bayan for coming into her life. Bayan sniffles, trying to hold back tears when she asks her mom if she is thankful, even though it cost her her eyes. Bayan is curious about what her mother saw when she looked into her future, the future that cost her everything. Before telling Bayan what it is she saw, Bayan's mother hugs her more warmly and says, "Give up the blue thread to the scarlet-threaded stranger." This is all her mother saw, and she assures Bayan that if she follows this, it will lead her to her faith. Bayan reminisces on the prophecy her mom had for her and tells her mother that she has no clue what that means. She feels that she does not know it because she is not very smart. Look at her in her mother's arms, and her mother comments on how she refuses to flatter herself. Nonetheless, she assures Bayan that when the time comes, she will know what the prophecy means, and Bayan agrees. With all the secrets out, and Bayan being too old for bloodletting, there is nothing left to tie Bayan and her mother to this hell of a village called Ganak. So Bayan suggests they leave the village. Bayan tells her mother that now that she is aware of all that went down in the village under her nose, she cannot bear to stay in the village any longer. She makes it clear to her mother that she does not have a say in this, and that she will take her along even if she says no. Still, it looks like Bayan would rather convince her mother to come with her than take her against her will, so Bayan decides to try advocating. She brings up the fact that her mother said she saw her fate and how she could not do anything in Ganak. She believes that she will have to leave the village if she intends on getting a shit at becoming anything. Bayan's mother wishes to say something else, but holds back and agrees with Bayan. The cold silence before Bayan's mother agrees to come with her is worth questioning. But Bayan does not do that. She is thrilled to hear this. Her mother, now looking like she is all in on the idea, states that they cannot depart now since it is snowing outside and suggests that they have a meal before they think of leaving. Sounds like a plan, and with the 2 weeks' worth of rations Yule's father gave Bayan, they'd have enough to eat before embarking on their journey. Bayan is so happy about this, she tells her mother that today they are going to have meat and wants them to leave on a full stomach. She leaves her mom in the house and rushes outside to get the meal ready for them to eat and get ready for their journey. For some reason, as she leaves the room, the warmth goes with her, leaving a cold vibe behind with her mother. When her mother is left alone, she shuffles 2 divination balls, silently thinking about how there is no more time for her to lose. She also tells herself that she cannot afford to change her mind now. But it's uncertain what she is talking about. Bayan is outside taking care of the fire, so they can have their meal, although her mind is busy plotting their escape. She sees the snow as an advantage because due to the snow, no one would be able to make it to their house for a while. Also, they were given extra rations, and these 2 things make Bayan see this time as the best opportunity for her and her mother to leave the village. With their escape fingertips away, Bayan remembers her mother and how those evil men violated her, immediately dampening her mood. Now she sits there by the fire, feeling down with Elder Danim, Yule's father, Glami's father, and Saran's father on her mind. She is determined to never forgive those horrible men for all they had done to her and her mother. They stole her blood, violated her mother, and upon all this, they keep acting high and mighty, going about their daily lives with all the villagers worshipping them. Bayan tends to the fire, certain about one thing: though her mother may have decided to forgive those animals and forget what they did to her, she does not intend to do the same. Oh, she is boiling in rage, enough rage to probably make what's in the pot feel cold. Bayan is so pissed that she feels like running to the village square and exposing the monsters for what they have done. It is her earnest desire that the entire village know what type of animals those men really are. Apart from that, she would like to have them kneel before her mother and beg for forgiveness. Bayan wants revenge. She wants to make those terrible people pay, but she wonders who would believe her. It'll be a move against the central figures of the village, and since they see her as a dirty little freak, they would definitely feel she is lying. Bayan rounds up with the cooking, shares it into plates, and then takes it to her mother, having it in mind that one day she will have her chance to get them back for all they have done. Nevertheless, she knows she will have to leave the village first and get stronger for her and her mother. She also cannot bear to have those evil men anywhere near her mother anymore. Though Bayan's mind is busy and very dark right now, she pretends, faking a smile as she announces to her mother that dinner is ready. She happily tells her mother that there is loads of meat in the stew since her mom is blind and can't see anything. Although Bayan's mother is blind, she can sense that there is something wrong with the food, and I don't mean Bayan's cooking. It's starting to feel like something bad is about to happen. Bayan's mother then suggests that before they start eating, she has something to give Bayan and hands her the 2 red balls from earlier. Bayan seems surprised by this gift. She calls the balls divination orbs and asks her mother why she is giving them to her when she isn't even a Sibyl. As far as she could remember, when she was younger, her mother never let her touch the orbs for fear that she would disturb the powers. Nonetheless, Bayan's mother explains that the orbs contain energy from Bayan's blood and are hers now. Bayan bluntly tells her mother that she does not think she will need them, and her mother encourages her to hold on to the orbs because someday she might actually need them. Bayan's mother lets her in on a little saying that swallowing the orbs can heal sicknesses. That's not the only thing that has been said about the orbs, however. She also heard that if someone swallows one orb and their partner swallows the other, they will have an everlasting bond. All Bayan's mother can think about now is how the orbs are the only thing she can pass down to her. It's weird that she is worried about inheritance when they are to be leaving the village soon, though. Bayan, on the other hand, sees that as unbelievable and maybe a lot to process, as she is not one who fancies love. The next thing on Bayan's agenda is to eat, so that they leave the village as quickly as possible, but her mother has some other plans. She asks Bayan to sing her a song, and Bayan, looking a little hungry, asks if they are not going to eat. Bayan's mother just tells her she wants to hear her voice to clear her mind. That's enough to get Bayan to start singing the song she sang on her way home, the one she was singing before she got interrupted by Glami. As Bayan sings, her mother takes 1 spoon of food like it's medicine before interrupting Bayan's singing. When Bayan's mother gets Bayan's attention, she stops eating, drops her spoon, and advises Bayan to never lose herself in anger. She, for one, believes that Bayan is strongest with a cool head while remaining as herself fully. After this piece of advice, Bayan's mother advises her to remember what she has just told her, and that's when Bayan senses that something is wrong. She points out to her mother that she is acting strange and asks why she is saying all those weird things. Her mother never gets the chance to answer the question. Sadly, she starts coughing blood. Seeing her mother cough blood terrifies Bayan, and she rushes to her aid, pushing aside the table and food she spent a reasonable amount of time to make. Bayan asks her mother what is wrong, but she gives her no response. It is then she notices a little of the blood her mom coughed out is dark red, meaning it's something serious. The only solution Bayan can think of how is to rush her mind there to the village, and she urges her mother to hang in there. Bayan, knowing that she has no time to lose and some distance to cover for her to get to the village, puts her mother on her back, goes into the blistering cold and snow, and runs as fast as she can toward the village. Bayan refuses to give up, yet she cannot see where she is going because of the snow. She can't even tell if they are on the right path. Yet that doesn't stop Bayan from forging ahead, with her mother's life in her hands literally. The purpose of Bayan getting to the village is so that she can get someone, anyone, to heal her mother. This is something she would not have needed if she could heal on her own, like the other Siyos, and Bayan beats herself up for this, but still does not give up. When Bayan's mother calls out to her weakly, Bayan seeks to know what her mother wishes to say, and her mother tells her not to cry, while attempting to dry her tears with her palm. Because of this, Bayan instructs her mother to stop talking and hold on because they are on their way to the village. But her mother goes on anyway. She dishes out what looks like and might be her final words, which is very sad to sad. Bayan's mother, still weakly hanging on to her, tells Bayan that every single day since she was born, she made her a happy mother. She tells Bayan that because of her, she has no regrets and wants Bayan not to have any as well. Again, it sounds like last words, and Bayan does not want to hear this now. The farewell speech ends when Bayan's mother brushes Bayan's hair aside and whispers a happy birthday in her ear. Just after that happy birthday, she slips off Bayan lifelessly and drops. Bayan is unwilling to let go of her mother still, and with tears in her eyes, she yells that her mother should not leave her this way. She continuously yells "Mom" as the snowstorm increases, and this won't bring back her mother, but she has no other way in mind. Losing your mother on your birthday, the day you come of age, must be really hard for you, Bayan. Days later, Yul's father and Glami's father are sitting by a rock, and finally, they share the names of these animals. Yul's father is actually Chan, and he expresses how glad he is that the snow is finally letting up, while Glami's father, Yoongo, wants to discuss Bayan. He, for one, wants to believe that Bayan couldn't have run off in the blizzard, and Yul's father, Chan, tells him that she can't run off since she has nowhere to go. He tells Yoongo, Glami's father, that High Elder Danim had ordered that they seize her around noon. There was only one road down the mountains, and to them, the only road Bayan could use to escape. So Chan, Yul's father, feels all they have to do is wait there and keep watch. These animals move from discussing Bayan to discussing the poison they put in the food parcel they gave her. Looks like Bayan's mother perceived that there was poison in the food and still ate it, but didn't let Bayan have a bite. Looks like now there's an explanation for her asking Bayan to sing that day. Back to these despicable men. Chan, Yule's father, tries to assure young Go, Glami's father, that the poison is indeed efficient. He tells him that the poison he put in melts the insides immediately. According to him, such a poison would kill a weak Sibyl like Bayan's mother. Immediately. Sad, isn't it? How sick is the tone of these men as they discuss the woman they just murdered like she was nothing after everything they put her and Bayan through? Young-go asks Chan what would happen if Bayan ate the food along with her mother, and all Chan can say is, "Boo-hoo for us then." How sick of them. Young-go replies that although Bayan was a freak, her blood was really something, the only reason why this despicable man wouldn't like them to give Bayan out. The hunger for power here is unbelievable. Nevertheless, Chan consoles him, assuring him that there is no value in the blood of a full-grown dark Siyo. Now that Bayan has come of age, her blood lacks the power these men hunger for, the same power that kept Bayan's mother alive and ended her life. Chan assures Young-go that they lose nothing by giving Bayan out, thanking the gods that she became of age about the time the great Sun Emperor needed another concubine. Oh, how awful are these men actually? Chan claims that they make excuses for their evil deeds, stating that they had done their fair share of good deeds by allowing Bayan to be raised in her village. Young-go agrees with him that they did Bayan a favor, and Chan continues to boast about their shady deeds. He says that he had feared they would get cursed for killing off a Sibyl like Bayan's mother, but feels like they have actually done her and Bayan a favor. Young-go, Glami's father, a bit terrified by the mention of curses, admonishes Chan, Yule's father, to refrain from talking about curses, to prevent him from jinxing them both. What a coward. Chan scoffs at Young-go's fear, and in a very since manner, he states that Bayan's mother must have lost her powers long before she died. He sees this as the only reason why she gave them her own child's blood, and believes that she would have perished before she even got the chance to lay a curse on them. As the men discuss boldly their evil ways, Jahan spies on them from a safe distance while eavesdropping on their conversation. The men shift their discussion to the Great Sun Emperor. From what Chan had heard, the Great Sun Emperor kills people every day and consumes their blood. Young-go tells Chan that he had heard. The Emperor didn't act that way on the battlefield, and seems to know if Chan feels the man has gone mad. Chan smacks his tongue in disgust at how Young-go lacks awareness of certain things about their kingdom. To explain better the reason behind the Great Sun Emperor's behavior, Chan refers Young-go to the old tales. He believes that the Emperor is most definitely a defendant of the Great Sun Spirit, Taemuriong. From this tale it is said that whoever is a descendant of the Sun Spirit gets increased madness, the stronger their power grows. He is certain the Great Sun Emperor is a descendant of this Sun Spirit, as there were many emperors before him who got the madness and ended up dying untimely. Because of the state at which the Emperor sent Saren back, and they had all seen it, he is sure no one will want to send their daughter to be the next concubine. Although Young-go knows they have to send Bayan, he feels a little bad, however, not because he cares about her, but because of his perverted mindset. Chan surprisingly agrees with him, stating that Bayan has grown to become a ripe little beauty, taking after her mother on that note. Young-go snickers as he comes up with a devious plan. According to him, if Bayan is already destined to die, they could have a little fun with her before sending her off. This disgusting discussion proves that Bayan's mother was right. These perverted men violated her. With the conversation getting even more disgusting, Jahan gets tired of eavesdropping and walks in on their conversation. He acts like he has been looking for the men all along, frightening them at first, but they relax when they find out it's him. Chan is surprised to see Jahan and asks Jahan what he is doing there. Jahan tries to check his running nose and tells the men that his father, High Elder Danim, wants them. Chan isn't buying Jahan's act and asks Jahan what his father needs them for. It is then Jahan uses a little of the knowledge he gathered from their discussion, that he eavesdropped on, and tells them that his father wants to discuss what they plan to do at noon. He adds that his father said they'd know what that meant, acting as clueless as possible. He also tells the men that his father wants to see them both, in order to get both of them out of the way, but they start to suspect that something is up. Jahan finishes his act by asking the men what they are doing anyway, and they look at each other not knowing what to say. Chan, as expected, steps up, explaining that they are just watching the snow to see if there are any signs of an avalanche. Youngo, on the other hand, remains speechless. That's to be expected from a dense man like him. He reminds me of his daughter sometimes. Jahan sneezes. Now it's uncertain whether he really has a cold or is just acting. Nevertheless, it helps to say the men a bit. He offers to keep watch over the snow while the men go to see his father and urges them to hurry back because he has a cold. Chan acts compassionate and offers to heal Jahan. Maybe it's because of his ties with the High Elder, because niceness is not to be expected from this man. However, Jahan refuses, assuring Chan that his father, the High Elder, promised to heal him later. Now it's obvious Jahan is acting. He prompts the men to go, and eventually they comply and leave to find the High Elder. For the first time ever, Youngo senses that something is off here, and though he complies, he has his suspicions. He recalls a time when Jahan used to follow Bayan around and asks Chan, but Chan claims he does not know. Jahan is aware the men are still around, so he keeps acting sick to look helpless. With this act, he is able to fool a man like Chan into believing that he probably doesn't know what is going on. Still, Chan does not leave out the possibility that Jahan might be aware of what is going on. He believes that such a matter is one they should leave for Danim to take care of. It did come up. When the men are finally out of sight, Phase 1 of Jahan's plan is complete, and so he runs off to complete Phase 2. For those who might not know, Phase 2 is definitely to save Bayan from the fate that has been planned for her. Knowing that he has little time to alert Bayan and her mother, as he does not know she is dead, he dashes to their home as fast as his legs can carry. When he gets to the house, he notices there is no fire on the stove, giving him a little relief as he wonders if the mother and daughter were able to run away. He feels that would be best for them, but then he hears a sound that drags his attention. Jahan follows the sound to its source, which is Bayan seated in the corner holding on to her late mother. Remember, Jahan does not know that Bayan's mother is dead and rushes to Bayan, who looks so drenched. He yells out her name, tries to wake her up by shaking her, and tells her she cannot stay where she is. Bayan does not respond at first, yet when she does, she viciously orders Jahan not to touch her. She swats his hand from her and tells him to go away, and we all know Jahan would not listen to that, especially when he knows her life is on the line and those evil men are coming to get her. He tries even harder, refusing to leave, and tells Bayan that she has to run right away. If not, she will be taken to the Emperor's court. He sees the Emperor's court as a slaughterer house, after what happened to Saran, and tells Bayan she will be killed off if she doesn't run. Bayan seems to be experiencing a whirlwind of emotions here, however, as she sits dementedly, refusing to move. She acts as if she had not heard what Jahan had just said, and utters out the word dead. This confuses Jahan, and from the way he looks at Bayan, he seeks clarification, so she gives it to him. She tells Jahan that her mother is dead, and he does not get it at first. The words settle, taking Jahan's mind to what Bayan was holding on to when he entered. He looks down, realization setting in, and then he spots Bayan's mother's silver hair in the blanket Bayan is holding on to. Impulsively, he asks Bayan if her mother passed away, and she holds on to her late mother even tighter. The vibe in the room was quite frosty, but now it's managed to be even frostier. Bayan ignores Jahan's very obvious question and says that the house is so cold, still holding on to her mother. She declares that her mother does not like the cold, and this is just really sad. It seems as though the Bayan we know died with her mother. It's sad. But no one can judge her for the way she is handling the loss of the only person who was with her from the start. Jahan just sits there, tears building up in his eyes, and for a bit, he says nothing. He forgets the message he was trying to pass and that Chan and Youngo must have discovered that he had tricked them by now. He forgets that the men might be on their way to their location right now and could arrive any moment. He forgets all this and genuinely dishes an apology to Bayan. With the apology delivered, Jahan decides he still has to give trying to save Bayan a try. He then tells her that although it is a lot to ask, He wants her to get out of there immediately. He tells her that his father and some men are on their way to get her. He is still holding back tears when he adds that they plan to take Bayan to the great sun emperor to be his next concubine. That fate, he is certain, is a death sentence, and he tries to explain that to Bayan, telling her that none of the women so far have come out of his place alive. All this is so that he can give Bayan a clear explanation of the place they wish to send her to, and Bayan just silently stares at him blankly. She then tells Jahan that she cannot go anywhere with her hands and feet the way they are. Their condition looks back. Her hands are all messed up and shaky. So what do her legs even look like? It's obvious she has been sitting there for days, holding on to her mother, and Jahan notices that she has frostbite. That's something she obviously got from just sitting there with such harsh cold around. Looks like her mood has affected her healing process because stuff like these are ordinarily supposed to self-heal quickly. Since Jahan has spotted the problem, to help Bayan escape, he asks her to show him her hands and feet so he can heal them. Bayan does, Jahan asks, without arguing, and he tells her that with the help of her own healing powers, along with his healing, she will get better in no time. He proceeds with healing her hand, which is completed in record time, and he seems happy he has healed them, before moving to her feet to heal it. Once Jahan is done with the healing processes, he goes back to planning Bayan's escape. He suggests that she pack light to quicken her escape, because packing a heavy bag will only weigh her down. While he is at it, Bayan is more focused on the hand Jahan just healed. She silently stares at it, and now I'm sure we are all asking ourselves the same question. Did good old Jahan also drink Bayan's blood? That's the same thing on Bayan's mind, because she notices that Jahan's powers have grown stronger and points it out to him. Jahan, knowing fully well what Bayan is driving at, just replies that his powers hit a little growth sprout. Bayan gazes coldly at him. It's obvious now that he was one of the people who drank her blood, because the increased ability is one thing, and his attitude right now is another. She comes out plainly and asks Jahan if he also drank her blood. His reaction to the question is a bit odd. Why gasp in shock when you drank her blood, Jahan? He tries to explain to her that it's not how she thinks it is. He starts by telling Bayan that at first, he didn't know what was going on and he did not believe it was her blood. Bayan, however, only picks the part where he says at first he was not aware and assumes that later on her found out and still drank the blood. The look in her eyes during this assertion is scarier than it had been since Jahan came to see her. Since Bayan has caught him, Jahan waves a white flag by apologizing to Bayan, but she just gets up and storms out of the room. Jahan follows Bayan, seeking to know where she is going, but she gives him no response. He follows Bayan to the stove area, where she bends down and searches for something. At a point, she stops and just looks down with a cold, disgusted look on her face. When we get to see what she is glaring at, it's the poisoned chunk of meat that came along with the poisoned 2 weeks' worth of rations. Bayan feels even more angry at herself now, for being happy when she collected meat that they had poisoned. Bayan picks up the rest of the rations, with a glare still on her face and Jahan staring at her, wondering what she wants to do. Bayan looks next to Murderess, while holding a knife and the rations, and declares that she is standing her ground and not running away like he has suggested. She is determined to make them pay for all that they did to her mom. What's next for Bayan? Will she have her revenge? Would she be taken to the Emperor's court after all? Comment Bayan below if you want part 2. In the meantime, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us a lot.